හරිම සුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Wednesday, the 6th of March 2024. Hopeful, President Ranil Wickremesinghe expresses hope of debt repayment relief until 2027, reveals plans to reduce VAT on certain categories. Outraged, Parliament heats up over central bank's controversial salary increments. Prime Minister reveals salaries had been increased between 29 and 89%. Undeterred, university students protest once again in Colombo. Tear gas and water cannons fired to disperse demonstrators. Cloaks and daggers, I was ousted by foreign and local conspirators. Laments Sri Lanka's 7th executive president. More details to be revealed via his book.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දිනූ සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
This is Ada Derana First at 9 with Ndivari Amuata and Mahish Jani. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening, everyone. Once again, welcome to First at 9, where we give you all the latest from here at home, all around the world. There are lots of stories to discuss tonight, especially
Interesting stories.
Very interesting
and
stories.
developments of news items that we have been reporting throughout.
Exactly. With regard to a book has come out, which you just saw in your
The
headlines.
conspiracy to oust me from the president will be released tomorrow. And
Oh,
there's-
so I thought it was today, and then I was actually trying to figure out what was the conspiracy and try to put that out. So maybe wait till
a
tomorrow.
statement that has been released today. So we will hear of that, of the book authored by the 7th executive president of Sri Lanka. And let's see, you might want to read it. And also we hear from the United States that Nikki Haley has dropped out.
I think finally she got the message. Was that?
This is ensure that Donald Trump will be the sole
Exactly, so-
nominee of the Republican camp.
Yeah, so now I think the primaries are actually over. Once there are only two candidates, one from the Democratic Party, which is the incumbent president. He actually didn't have a contest. But then on the other side, Donald Trump. So now Donald Trump and Joe Biden will have a rematch in 2024 this year around, where they will contest for the highest office in the United States. And hopefully polls are stating that it's going to be Donald Trump. But the thing is this.
Oh, opinion
remember-
polls suggest Donald Trump, and this, I think the United States, the voters are realizing probably that they need to bring it back.
But you remember the 2016 election, right? Everybody said in the polling that Hillary Clinton is going to win over Donald
She was a favorite.
And look what happened. That was
Let's see.
surprising.
Let's see.
So let's begin with the bulletin we have for you tonight. Let's begin here at home. Now, as public outrage over tax hikes continue, President Ranil Wickremesinghe says, going forward, the government expects to remove the value-added tax imposed on books, medical equipment and medicine as the country incrementally attains economic stability.
Well, laying out the debt repayment plan in Parliament today, President Wickremesinghe stated that he expects to secure a debt relief period spanning up to 2027 following the completion of the external debt restructuring program under the extended fund facility of the International Monetary Fund.
Now, the president also revealed that according to the conditions outlined in the debt restructuring plan, Sri Lanka will make the debt repayments postponed since mid of 2022 from 2027 to 2042.
In Parliament today, President Ranil Wickremesinghe delivered a special statement apprising members of Parliament about the state of the Sri Lankan economy at the moment.
රාජ්‍ය ආදායම 2022 වසරට සාපේක්ෂව 2023 වසරේදී 50%කට වැඩි ප්‍රමාණයකින් ඉහළ නංවා ගැනීම 70%ක් තිබූ උද්දමනය 2024 වසරේ පෙබ්‍රුවාරි මාසයේදී 5.9ක් දක්වා පහළ වැටුණා. 2023 වසරේදී 30%ක් ඉක්ම වූ පොලි අනුපාතය 10%කට වඩා අඩු අගයකට මේ වන විට පහත වැටී තියෙනවා. රුපියල් 363ක් පැවති ඇමරිකානු ඩොලරය ඊයේ වන විට රුපියල් 308ක් පමණ අගය කර අවප්‍රමාණයක් වෙලා තියෙනවා. රුපියල ශක්තිමත් වී තිබෙනවා. වර්තමානයේ අපට පෙනෙන අපට දැනෙන ආර්ථික දියුණුව ගැනත් සමහරු විවේචනය කරනවා. ණය ගෙවන්න පටන් ගත්තු ගමන් රට ආපහු නරක තත්වයකට ඇද වැටෙන බව ඔවුන් තර්ක කරනවා. අප මේ ගැන ගත කරන්නේ අපායේ ඉන්ටර්වල් එකක් කියලා ඔවුන් කියන්නේ. ඒ විවේචනයේ කිසිදු පදනමක් නැති බව මම අවධාරණය කරන්න කැමතියි. ඔබතුමාට මම කියන්න කැමතියි 2023 සිට 2027 දක්වා ණය නොගෙවා සිටීමේ తాවකාලික සහනයක් ලබා ගැනීමට අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. ඉන්පසු 2042 දක්වා කාලය තුල ණය ආපහු ගෙවීමට අප ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනවා. මේ සියල්ල මේ ප්‍රතිපලයක් හැටියට පියවරෙන් පියවර ජනතාවට සහන ලබා දීමේ හැකියාව අපට ලැබෙනවා. ව්‍යාපාර ආයතන සඳහා පරාටේ නීති අත්විඳීමට අප පියවර ගත්තා. මේ සතිය අපට විදුලි බිලට සහනයක් ලබා දෙන්න පුළුවන් වුණා. ඒ වගේම ඉදිරියේදී පොත් පාසල් උපකරණ සෞඛ්‍ය උපකරණ බේත් වැනි අංග වැට් බදු ලයිස්ට්ෙන් ඉවත් කිරීමට අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. අනාගතයේදී වැට් බදු ප්‍රතිශතය තවත් අඩු කිරීමට අපට හැකියාව ලැබෙනවා. සමහරු සිල්ලර විසඳුම් වලින් මේ ගැටලු විසඳන්න පුළුවන් කියා කල්පනා කරනවා. පිටරට සිටින ලාංකිකයන්ගෙන් ඩොලර් 10ක් බැගින් හෝ 100ක් බැගින් ලබා ගන්න සමහරු යෝජනා කරනවා. ඉතින් මේ අවස්ථාවේ අප ඉදිරියේ තියෙන එක ප්‍රශ්නයයි. අප මේ දැන් මේ යන මාගේ ඉදිරියට යනවද නැද්ද? රට වැටී තිබුණේ අසහනකාරී බංකොලොත් තත්වයට යලි ඇද දමනවද? තීරණය කරන්න අපායට යලි ඇද වැටෙනවද? බොහෝ දේශපාලන කණ්ඩායම් ජනප්‍රියත්වය තකා සුරංගනා පොරොන්දු දෙනවා. බලය වෙනුවෙන් බොරු කියනවා. හැබැයි මම කවදාවත් බලය වෙනුවෙන් බොරු කිව්වේ නැහැ. ඒ නිවැරදි ගමනට එක් වෙන්න කියා මම මේ ගරු සභාවේ ඔබ සෑම දෙනාගෙන්ම සිළු ලාංකික ජනතාවගෙන්ද මම ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා.
New Dulux Pentolite Hygiene Plus. Refreshing walls for generations.
Parliament once again heated up as both the government and the opposition expressed their views over the controversial salary hike of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. During the debate, Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardene revealed that the country's top monetary authority awarded salary hikes between 29% to 89% to its employees.
Amidst the exchange, parliamentarians of the opposition raised concerns over the independence of the central bank under which the salary hikes were purportedly granted.
2024 වසරේදී මහ බැංකු සේවක මණ්ඩලය වෙත වැටුප් වර්ධක ලබා දීමෙන් පසුව ඔවුන්ට හිමි වන මූලික වැටුප සහ දල වැටුප එක් එක් ශ්‍රේණි සඳහා කොපමණද? ඒ අනුව එක් එක් ශ්‍රේණි සඳහා අදාළ වැටුප් වර්ධකයේ ප්‍රතිශතයක් ලෙස කොපමණද? කතානායකතුමනි, මුදල් ඇමතිවරයා හැටියට ජනාධිපතිතුමා ඉන්නවා නම් මේ ප්‍රශ්නෙට ජනාධිපතිතුමා උත්තරයක් දෙනවා නම් මම කැමතියි. පුළුවන් නම් නැත්නම් අගමැතිතුමා උත්තරයක් දෙන්න.
2024 සාමූහික කිවිසුම යටතේ ලද වැටුප් වර්ධනයට පසු ආගන්න දල වැටුප 1,80,827.733 පහළම සේවක ප්‍රතිශාත්මක වැඩිවීම 29.53යි. කළමනාකාර සහායක පන්තිය 4 1,01,000 වැඩිවීමෙන් 3,47,820යි. වැඩිවීම 89%යි. කළමනාකාර සහායක පන්තිය 5 1,29,155යි. වැඩිවීම 4,21,184යි. වැඩිවීමේ ප්‍රතිශතය 54යි. මාණ්ඩලික පන්තිය විශේෂ ශ්‍රේණිය සහකාර අධිපති 4,34,075යි. වැඩිවීමෙන් පස්සේ මිලියනයයි 267යි 170යි. වැඩිවීම 76යි. මාණ්ඩලික පන්තිය නියෝජ්‍ය අධිපති 584යි 775යි. වැඩිවීමෙන් පස්සේ මිලියනය 728යි 419යි. වැඩිවීම 76යි.
මහ බැංකුවේ පනත 1950 ඉඳලා දීලා තියෙනවා ඔවුන්ට හැකියාව තියෙනවා ඔවුන්ගේ සේවකයන්ගේ පඩිය මොකද්ද කියලා එකඟතාවයකට එන්න. ඉතින් කාලයක් තිස්සේ ඔවුන් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන මේ කලෙක්ටිව් ඇග්‍රීමන්ට් වලින්. හැබැයි අපි ඊයේ අධිපතිවරයාට දැඩිව පෙන්නලා දුන්නා. ඔබලාට මේ අයිතිය තිබ්බට මේක සදාචාරාත්මක මොකද්ද? එතකොට ඔහු වගෙන් කෙලින්ම ඇහුවා ඔබතුමා කියන්නේ පඩි වැඩි කරපු එකද වැරදි? එහෙම නැත්නම් පඩි වැඩි කරපු ප්‍රමාණයද වැරදි කියලා. මං කෙලින්ම කිව්වා ප්‍රමාණය වැරදි. අපි ඔවුන්ට කිව්වේ ඔබලා නැවතත් මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් සලකලා බලන්න. ඒගොල්ලෝ සලකලා බලනවාද නැද්ද කියන එක සම්බන්ධයෙන් වෙනම කතාවක් තියෙනවා. මහ බැංකුවේ ආදායම හෝ ලාභය වියදම් කරන විදිය පිළිබඳව මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට අයිතියක් නැද්ද කියන ප්‍රශ්නේ තමයි එන්නේ. එතකොට මෙතන තියෙන්නේ ගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමා දේශපාලනයට එහා ගිය ව්‍යවස්ථාදායක ගැටලුවක්.
So within the parliament's ambit, the parliament has created an autonomous state, not a separate state. And in that you have given the powers. This is what we have agreed. So this is how in most countries it operates, that which is a democracy, that finance is a matter for parliament. While finance is a matter for parliament, parliaments have by law given a certain amount of latitude and independence to their monetary authority. That's there in Singapore, that's there in England, that's become the norm now. And we've been following that norm. The same is there with the Reserve Bank in India. So parliament finally decide what is good.
අපි කවුරුත් ආණ්ඩුවේ පක්ෂයේ විපක්ෂයේ දෙකලම මේකට විරුද්ධයි. විපක්ෂය හිතාගෙන ඉන්නේ මේ ආණ්ඩුව මේක මේවා කරා කියලා. එහෙම කරන්න බෑ. මේක ආණ්ඩුව මේකට සම්බන්ධත් නැහැ, විපක්ෂය සම්බන්ධත් නැහැ. ඒගොල්ලෝ වැඩි කරගත්ත එකට ඇයි අපි නිකන් දෙපැත්ත තලාගන්නේ. ඒ නිසා හර්ෂ දිල්ලා මාත්‍යට බලය තියෙන එක යාට කරන්න කියන්නේ.
මොනිටරි බෝඩ් එකට මුදල් අමාත්‍යාංශයේ ලේකම්වරයා ඇතුළත් වෙලා නැහැ. එතකොට එක ප්‍රශ්නයක්. එතකොට දැන් වෙනදා සාමාන්‍යයෙන් මොනිටරි බෝඩ් එකේ මුදල් අමාත්‍යාංශයේ ලේකම්වරයා හිටියා. එතකොට මේ අවස්ථාවේ මහින්ද සිරිවර්ධන මහත්මයා ලේකම් විදියට චක්‍රලේඛනයක් නිකුත් කළා දිනවා කිසිම රාජ්‍ය ආයතනයක පඩි වැඩි කිරීම කරන්න එපා කියලා. එතකොට එවැනි තත්ත්වයක් තියෙද්දි කොහොමද ආණ්ඩුවෙන් හෝ නැත්නම් මුදල් අමාත්‍යාංශයෙන් හෝ යම් අනුමැතියක් නැතිව ඔවුන්ට ඒක කරගන්න පුළුවන් වුණාට යම් අනුමැතියක් අනිවාර්යෙන් තිබිය යුතුයි. එහෙම එකක් නැතුව මේ පඩි වැඩි කිරීම තුළ තමයි මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ ඇති වෙලා තියෙන්නේ.
රටවල් ගණනාවක අද හොදෙන මේ මුදල් අමාත්‍යාංශයේ ලේකම් නැහැ. ඉන්දියාවේ නැහැ, සිංගප්පූරුවේ නැහැ, එංගලන්තේ නැහැ, ඇමරිකාවේ නැහැ. ඉතින් ඒ ක්‍රමවේදය අනුව තමයි යෝජනා කරේ ඉවත් කරන එක. ඉතින් මෙතුමයි ඔක්කොම ඒක අනුමත කරා.
මේ පනතේ ඉතාමත්ම පැහැදිලිව කියලා තියෙනවා මහ බැංකුවේ ලාභය හෝ පාඩුව මත තමන්ගේ පඩි වැඩි කර ගැනීම අඩු කර ගැනීම කරන්න බෑ කියලා. ඒක ඉතාමත්ම පැහැදිලි. එහෙමනම් මේ මහ බැංකුවේ පනතේ 96 තුන්වෙනි කොටසේ තියෙනවා මහ බැංකුව සාධාරණ විදියට මුදල් ඒ තමන්ගේ ලැබෙන ලාභය වෙන් කරයින් පස්සේ ඉතුරුවා තියෙනවා නම් මෙන්න මෙහෙම දෙයක්. Thirdly, any remaining distributable earnings after compliance with the preceding provisions shall, as determined by the governing board in consultation with the minister, either be applied in liquidation of any outstanding government obligations to the central bank due as at the end of the financial year, or be paid and credited to the consolidated fund කියලා. ඒතකොට මේ මුදල් සම්බන්ධයෙන් තමයි මේ ව්‍යවස්ථාව මෙතන කතා කරන්නේ. consolidated fund එකට එන මුදල්. හරි එතකොට ඒකට පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ බලයක් තියෙනවා. එතකොට එහෙමනම් මුදල් ඇමතිවරයාගෙන් අහලා තමයි consolidated fund එකට මේ මුදල් සම්ප්‍රේෂණය වෙන්නේ. ඔහුගේ අනුමැතියත් එක්ක. or whether with concurrence. මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ යම් බලයක් තියෙනවා. නමුත් සම්පූර්ණ බලය නැහැ. අහ බැංකුවේ ලාභය කොයි විදිහටද වියදම් කරන්න කියන එක පිළිබඳව. මම හිතන්නේ ඕක තමයි ප්‍රශ්නේ. සමහරුන්ට මේක තේරෙන තත්ත්වයක් තමයි තියෙන්නේ.
මම විශේෂයෙන්ම සභාපතිතුමාට කිව්වා විශේෂයෙන්ම මහ බැංකුවේ අධිපතිතුමා ඔක්කොම කැඳවලා අවස්ථාව දෙන්න කියලා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට. දැන් ඔක්කොම ඊයේ සියලු දෙනාම පැමිණියා. දැන් තියෙන වාර්තාවට ගැන විවාද කරන්න වෙන එකක් නෙමෙයි. මට පේන හැටියට මේ අද මේ වැඩ කටයුත්තේ යන්නේ මේ මහ බැංකුවේ අධිපතිතුමා අයින් කළා දාන්න නෙමෙයි. ආචාර්ය හර්ෂ සිල්වා කකුලෙන් අදින්න.
Streets in Colombo were yet again engulfed in tensions as police fired tear gas and water cannons to end the protest march organised by the Inter-University Students' Federation. The protest was launched over several issues related to policies brought forward that already curb free education during tensions today. The convener of the Inter-University Students' Federation was also apprehended by police.
A protest march was organised by the Inter-University Students' Federation today at the Punchiborala Junction over several concerns. Key concerns raised by the protesters included various policies brought forward by the authorities which allegedly curbed free education in Sri Lanka. At the inception of the protest, the riot police fired water cannons at the protesters in an attempt to disperse them. Despite these measures, the protesters made their way towards the Colombo National Hospital. During the protest march, IUSF convener Madhushan Chandrajit was arrested by the police. Later, the students protested in front of the Colombo National Hospital. The protesters were also seen protesting inside the hospital premises, disrupting healthcare operations at the hospital.
Well, the Additional Secretary of the Health Ministry, Dr. Saman Ratnayaka, who was recently arrested by the CID and remanded over the procurement of substandard medicine, has reportedly made a 4-hour-long confidential statement to the Maligakanda magistrate today. Now, Dr. Saman Ratnayaka made this confidential statement after being produced before the Maligakanda magistrate. On Friday, the CID apprehended him over his involvement in the import of the substandard vials of a certain drug. He was ordered to be remanded after being produced in court the following day. Again, on Friday, the Additional Secretary had stated before the court that he was willing to make a confession regarding the matter, following which the court ordered him to be separated from the other arrested suspects in the case.
Now, State Minister of Defence Pramitha Bandara Tennakoon has emphasised the importance of working together with the Maldives to counter several common challenges, including violent extremism, illicit trafficking of drugs and humanitarian crisis faced by both nations. During a meeting with the Maldivian Defence Minister Mohammad Ghassan Mamoon at the Ministry of Defence in Maldives yesterday, Tennakoon stressed upon the importance of working together to counter common challenges such as climate change and environmental security, violent extremism, illicit trafficking, disasters and humanitarian crisis. The Maldivian Defence Minister also reiterated the importance of defence cooperation and relationship between the Maldives and Sri Lanka and highlighted the critical role played through collaborative efforts to ensure regional peace and stability. Both ministers reaffirmed their cooperation to bilateral ties and strengthening existing engagements and to identify new avenues for collaboration and to work together in order to achieve greater peace, stability and security in the region.
As you can remember, in 2022, our country was pretty much marred by political instability, which coupled with fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic and structural macroeconomic weaknesses that led to the unprecedented crisis, causing hardships to almost all Sri Lankans.
Now, moving past an extremely uncertain and dark chapter of Sri Lanka's history, today Sri Lanka looks forward to exercising the right of franchise in the upcoming polls.
Now, while Sri Lanka gathers itself to head to the voting booth this year, former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa says a major political campaign led by conspiratorial forces in 2022 ousted him from the presidency as soon as the country started to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic.
Now, the former president also said that certain foreign and local parties were inherent on removing him from power since he took office as the president of Sri Lanka in 2019.
In a statement announcing the publication of his book on the events that led to his resignation as President Gotabaya Rajapaksa says that the political campaign to oust him brought a new element into Sri Lankan politics.
Following the COVID-19 pandemic, Sri Lanka's economy collapsed, prompting the nation to default on its debt obligations. As the woes affecting the general public grew to insurmountable heights, people who gathered in Colombo protested against the government led by former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and demanded that the president resign. Finally, Protesters stormed the president's house on the 9th of July, forcing the president to escape, and later officially submitted his resignation as the country's top executive on the 14th of July 2022. Releasing a statement announcing the publication of his book titled The Conspiracy to Oust Me from the Presidency, the former president states that the first 2 years of his tenure were spent battling the COVID-19 pandemic. However, conspiratorial forces commenced a political campaign to oust him from the presidency by the end of March 2022, when the economy was just beginning to recover. He further said that foreign intervention and the manipulation of internal politics, which played a major role in removing him from power, has now become a fact of life in Sri Lanka in a manner never experienced in the first 60 years of independence of this country. The former president claims that the political campaign to oust him brought a new element into the politics of Sri Lanka, which has since independence experienced only peaceful transfers of power following elections. He says that his publication, which will be available for the public from tomorrow onwards, explains the experience of an internationally sponsored regime change operation. Since the events of 2022 are fraught with serious implications for the future of the country, former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa highlights that his book will be of interest not only to Sri Lankans but also to foreigners.
2 civilians were arrested while a police officer was interdicted over an altercation which occurred between the arrested and the interdicted police officer. Meanwhile, 3 officials employed at the Navalapitiya railway station were suspended for allegedly assaulting 2 foreign nationals. Now, this was captured on video and shared on social media throughout the day yesterday. With that, here's the look at local news making top across the country in brief.
3 people, including a police officer, sustained injuries during a violent altercation which broke out in the Udappur area in Putlam last night. The trio who sustained injuries following the dispute were rushed to hospital for treatment yesterday. Later this evening, measures were taken to interdict the police officer involved in the incident, while the other 2 suspects were apprehended by the police. The police are currently investigating the circumstances which led to the dispute. Meanwhile, 3 officials of the Navalapitiya railway station were suspended for allegedly assaulting 2 foreign nationals at the Navalapitiya railway station. According to reports, the 3 suspects assaulted 2 British citizens travelling on the Podimanika train from Colombo to Badulla. Following the incident, the 2 station masters and a railway controller were suspended while a comprehensive investigation is underway regarding the incident. In the meantime, a 13-year-old girl was reported dead in a slip and fall incident at a school in the Kalawana area this morning. The teenage girl, who was promptly taken to hospital, succumbed to injuries upon admission to the hospital. The corpse of the minor is currently placed at Ratnapura Teaching Hospital for post-mortem examinations. In other local news, 3 persons were killed after the 3-wheeler collided with a lorry near the Bulugola junction in the Pothuara area. According to police, 4 people who were inside the 3-wheeler at the time were rushed to the Kurunagala Teaching Hospital with critical injuries, where 3 of them were later reported dead. The driver of the lorry was arrested. Investigations into the cause of the accident are currently being carried out by the Pothuara police.
Welcome back to the news. The Attorney General has requested the Appeals Court to lift the interim order imposed pertaining to the divestment of Sri Lanka Telecom and Lanka Hospitals. Last week, the Appeals Court delivered an interim order temporarily halting all future measures regarding the divestment of SLT and Lanka Hospitals until March 12th. The relevant order was issued upon consideration of a writ petition filed by Leica Mobile, SARL and Petico Comercial International on behalf of SLT and another filed by Leica Leasing Holdings Limited and HIMS International on behalf of Lanka Hospitals. When the petitions were taken up again before Appeals Court Judge D.N. Samarakon today, Additional Solicitor General Sumati Dharmawardana made the request on behalf of the Attorney General. The petitioning companies have alleged that despite having submitted all required documents to the respondents for the transfer of 50.23% state-owned shares in SLT and 51.34% in shares in Lanka Hospital, the Cabinet Subcommittee had assigned to the restructuring of state-owned enterprises rejected the said applications for no apparent reason. Thus, the companies have noted that the committee's decision to reject their applications is not only arbitrary and unfair but also unlawful given that they had fulfilled all prerequisites.
Let's take you to the stock market now. Sri Lankan shares extended their run of gains today, closing in green for the fourth consecutive day. On the back of significant gains by financials and consumer staples, the benchmark all-share price index rose by 0.37% to settle at 10,881.72 points. Now, Ceylon Tobacco PLC and LOLC Finance PLC were the top gainers on the index, rising 3.6% and 4.4% respectively. Now, trading volume on the index rose to 263.5 million shares from 73.7 million shares in the previous session. Meanwhile, the S&P SL20 was up by 0.26 by the end of the session and closed at 3,100.3 points. Now, market turnover stood at 2.29 billion rupees, rising from 1.5 billion rupees in the previous session. The diversified financial sector was the top contributor to the turnover, while the food and beverage and tobacco sector came in second. Foreign investors were net sellers, offloading stocks worth 1.11 billion rupees, while domestic investors were net buyers, purchasing shares worth 2.25 billion rupees.
Up next is Udishan Jonas from Capital Alliance with some thoughts on the current status of the economy in our next segment, Sri Lanka's Economic Outlook.
Inflation for the month of February came in at 5.9% versus 6.4% recorded in the month of January. Going into the month of March, we expect inflation to see a steep downward correction as a result of the 22% electricity tariff reduction that will materialize from this month, as well as the base effect, as March 2023 had a higher base, which may lead to a relatively steeper reduction in terms of inflation during the month of March 2023. The 22% electricity tariff reduction comes in amidst Sri Lanka seeing very high levels of electricity consumption in the month of February. At present, we are seeing hydro generation only being about 20%, which will mean that Sri Lanka will consume more thermal power generation in the month of February and March. From a currency perspective, the currency appreciated to about 307 rupees to the dollar, with import demand remaining very weak. From an interest rate perspective, we saw the Treasury bill auction held today see an increase in terms of rates, where the 3-month Treasury bill rates increased by 10 basis points and the 12-month Treasury bill rates increased by 9 basis points. However, the weighted average lending rates or the borrowing rates fell by 8 basis points to 11.42% last week. From a debt restructuring perspective, the private creditors have been given a proposal from the government, and the government is expecting response from the private creditors in terms of the debt restructuring proposal to come in the next couple of weeks. If that happens through, we expect the external debt restructuring to be completed by the second quarter of 2024.
Well, Habarana village by Sinuan commemorated its 48th anniversary, eventfully honouring its long history of providing hospitality.
Meanwhile, H&B PLC announced its recognition as a joint winner in the banking category for excellence in sustainability reporting at the Sri Lanka Sustainability Awards, organised by the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants.
Now, with that, here's a look at some corporate news in brief.
Habarana village by Cinnamon celebrated its 48th anniversary recently with festivities that honoured its history in hospitality. The anniversary celebrations commenced with religious ceremonies, paying homage to the cultural richness of the region and seeking blessings for the journey ahead. Meanwhile, HMB plc announced its recognition as joint winner in the banking category for excellence in sustainability reporting at the Sri Lanka Sustainability Awards organised by the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants. HNB's annual report for 2022, Built for Resilience, won gold for its excellence in transparent reporting, accountability and deploying responsible practices in sustainability. In a statement, the HMB said this achievement highlights the commitment of the bank in exceeding the high standards of environmental, social and governance practices. In the meantime, Surf Excel Pallam Surya is back this year with aspirations to surpass the benchmarks set during its inauguration last year. This event aims to fortify the trust of the parents in Surf Excel by allowing the children to embrace messy play through various fun activities.
We will continue to talk about the US elections and the primaries going forward, but that's all the time we have on the news tonight.
Exactly. We are running out of time. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Mahesh Johnny.
And I'm Indivri Amwatha. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.